Hey, Gary's Gulch, welcome back. Man, here we are, nearly the middle of 2026. The 250th celebration, July 4th, 2026, is almost upon us. And there's so many amazing, incredible things that are coming this summer that I'm giddy. I'm excited. I can't wait to see all this happen. And I'm sure you can feel that energy coming from me. And then we have the so important midterm elections coming up this October. Really important to hold on to the House and the Senate so that we can support President Trump in his last 2.5 years here, doing just incredible things for America. The MAGA movement, the Magna followers, Maha movement, people are remaining in there and remaining strong with President Trump. It's actually this higher gas prices and the skirmish with Iran, the trips to China, all of these things are really uncovering all of those rhinos and neocons that are not part of the MAGA movement, but they're just pretending to be so when the going is good, and it's easy to just say you're in that camp. But people like recently leader John Thune in the Senate came out against President Trump on a really stupid thing to put your marker down on and break with the party. So it's silliness, and it's amazing to see these people, how quickly they break. But President Trump is doing incredible things, and we have just got an amazing 2 years coming. I am so inspired. The man is carrying out actions as if God had his hand on his shoulder. And if you think about all the crazy things that have happened to him and he continues to persevere, no human is able to do that. I have no doubt that God is him in his plans and is helping us hold together this incredible thing, this incredible experiment that he helped our founding fathers start back in the Continental Conventions way back 50 years ago, over 250 years. And they got us through all these tough times, and America continues to persevere and thrive and be that lighthouse on the rock when everybody else's freedoms are falling apart, when their societies are falling apart, and they're losing their way. America can and will continue to shine as the lighthouse on the rock for others to follow, as that leader in the world of what it means to have human rights, to have ownership of your property, life, liberty, and property, so that you can prosper with agency at the family level. The family unit, that strong, cohesive, nuclear family unit that has been the backbone of America for so many years. So these next two episodes, I have an incredible opportunity, finally 300 episodes in, to have a much belated, very belated appearance by a dear friend of mine, a mentor of mine since I joined this industry, even before I joined it. I was listening to Todd Langford when I was trying to figure out what all of the math was associated with this 200-year-old product, traditional product of American finance. And I found his wife, actually Kim Butler, before I found Todd. Kim is a giant in our industry, and both of them for 4+ decades have been helping clients in our industry understand, helping families understand the importance of the traditional things like protecting the family from the loss of the value created by the breadwinner, helping people understand why buy term and invest the difference, why pay off your mortgage early, get a 15-year mortgage, do velocity banking, mutual funds make 15 or 12% on average every year, why these things don't make sense, why you shouldn't retire at age 50. There are so many important concepts that Kim gets her language very clear on, and you can hear more from her in the Prosperity Podcast, which is just a fantastic podcast. I listen to them the moment they come out, and I just learn so much every time I'm in the presence of my wonderful, dear friend, Kim Butler. Her husband, Todd, goes and tinkers in the back room in his financial software that he's been providing and teaching to advisors now, as I said, for 4 decades, going on 5 probably. Okay, he's not that old. Maybe 3 decades going on 4 for both of them. They're doing incredible things. They had mentors. They're passing it on. And these conversations with Todd are just incredible. So specifically about Todd, he's the founder of a company called Truth Concepts Financial Calculators. You can find more about it and about Todd at truthconcepts.com. Deep love for numbers. He's what we call an implementer in the Colby skills testing realm, in which means, and I am as well. And so Todd and I are people who like to use our hands, like to use implements, like to use tools like his calculators to help get concepts across, and frankly, to test them. I use calculators in the background, not when I'm with clients, almost predominantly not with clients. Sometimes I'll send them a video that has the calculators in it. But during meetings, I typically do not use them. Kim uses them actually more than I do. I use them in the background doing complex things to try to make sure that what I'm telling clients is actually correct. And Todd and I get into this in our conversations, these next 2 episodes, about how you can start saying things or you hear things and then you start repeating them and saying them to clients. And it could be years later when you realize, oh my gosh, that's not technically correct. And it's really embarrassing when you do that. So please always check your premise, check the math behind what you're telling clients to make sure that what you're saying is actually correct. And so the reason I can speak with confidence, the reason I can pour energy into my clients with confidence when I say things is because I've tested it left, on Sundays, upside down, whatever is necessary to make sure that I am 100% confident that what I'm saying is accurate. And it goes a long ways. That confidence goes a long ways for advisors to be able to help clients see the light, to unravel this craziness that they've been taught over the years and they just bought into. People say your home is not an asset, and others will say it's your most important asset. Who are you to believe? It's somewhat specific to your situation. But there are all kinds of crazy financial recommendations out there. How to retire at $1 million at age 50. That's a bad idea, folks. It's a horrible idea when you're going to live to 90s plus and you want to live an inspired retirement, not live in poverty and eat Campbell's soup for the rest of your life. So please dig into Todd's website, and coming very soon, he's the author of a book called Conscious Calculations. And to tell you how important this book is, this is Todd's first official book that he wrote on his journey and from the calculator. So he's helped Kim write dozens of smaller books on hers, and they put all kinds of his calculators in there to prove small concepts. But this is a comprehensive book about his calculators and why making sure that you tell the technical, specific, actual truth to clients makes such an important impact and a big difference for their family, their finances, and America. And that's why I follow Todd Langford, because he's helping us hold the thread of America together. So his book is called Conscious Calculations. We'll talk more about that, and once it is released here in 2026, I'm going to get a bunch of copies, and I'd love to put a copy in your hand if you're the kind of person who would value being able to read about the math that's under the hood, if you will. Okay, so his mission to challenge conventional financial thinking and empower truth-based financial decisions so that you can understand truly traditional ways of growing wealth in America. And it's sometimes a little more boring, like a very large savings, liquid savings bucket or account. Whole life insurance is what Kim and I help our clients use, and Todd is obviously a big supporter of that, and we'll prove it out in 6 or 7 different calculators if you would like, on why that math makes so much sense. Todd and I talk about a ton of things. Why lies are easier to tell than the truth. Why it's so difficult and for people to get some of the concepts, the role of these calculators. And one other thing, I think this comes up in episode 2 more than it does in episode 1, but it's about the idea of uncertainty, seeking adventure, seeking the thrill is what keeps humans thriving and getting up every day, is because of the unknown, and the thrill, the excitement of uncertainty is valuable. And it's one thing that we lost during COVID. We talk about that. But uncertainty is only something that we will handle if we know that there's something backing it. If we have that parachute, if we have that liquidity source, those reserves, if we have rules in place and we have people watching our assets and we have ways to be able to go out there and spread our wings and soar. You can only do that if you have some level of protection in place, if you have a family depending on you. If you're a single person, not going to get married, not going to have kids, have no one depending on you, if you disappear, no one's going to notice for a while, that's a different story. But most of us are not that. Those who are listening to this podcast and those who want to inspire, help, and grow America and our families' agencies. So thank you so much for listening to this. My intro to the part 2 is going to be a lot shorter. I do really hope that you value and appreciate this, and give me feedback. Let me know where to send your book if it is something that inspires you. Thank you so much. You can learn more at truthconcepts.com, and please dig in also to Todd's wonderful wife, Kim Butler's podcast, the Prosperity Podcast. Until next time, Go make something amazing happen in Gary's Gulch and enjoy this podcast with my dear close friend and mentor, Mr. Todd Langford of Truth Concepts.
Going back to some of the basics, I think that what happens is when they're in the industry for a long time, we start to use the slang. We start talking in ways that people don't understand that have never heard it before. We get comfortable with it, and we run over people, and we don't give them a chance to really catch up to where we are sometimes.
Yeah. Who was it that said, you talk about being in the industry for a long time and we run over people, and it made me think of, I have been amazed recently at some of the stuff that other people say that's just not right. I'm reminded of that when I go to your training, which is one of the primary reasons I do it. But I would say that the primary reason, Todd, is because I have been more amazed at and humbled by what comes out of my mouth or that is in my thinking that's not accurate, because I've said it to myself enough times that's the humbling part. I'm like, whoa, that actually, I need to check that premise, as Patrick Donahoe will always say, check your premise if things aren't turning out the way you think. But who was it? Was it Walt Whitman, or I don't remember who it was, but what was it? I've thought many things in my life, most of which weren't actually true. Or I know I've had
it's
something like I've had many horrible things happen in my life, most of which weren't even true. Or I don't remember what the phrase was, but it's awesome. Do you remember it?
Yeah, it's something like that. I've heard it too, but I can't think of exactly what it is. Yeah, it goes back to your idea of life is short. It's amazing what stuff becomes unimportant as you go through time too, doesn't it? And what you realize was feel like a massive event is such a non-issue. When you're older, you realize how unimportant the things that are important are in your mind when you're younger, right?
That distract you and get you all bent out of shape. Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly true. And wisdom comes with age for sure. I think it's because patience and perspective comes with age. There's that old saying that wisdom comes from bad decisions and bad decisions come from experience. Or no, maybe wisdom comes from experience and experience comes from bad decisions. They don't come from good experiences.
You can't, it's the old deal of going to Vegas. If you win, you're done the first time you go, because you'll go back and think you're invincible, right?
Yeah.
And you will find out just how much you are not. And why we don't like losing, I have this conversation with Tammy all the time. It's about stretch. That's one of my words in there. And I hate to stretch, right? It's uncomfortable. And I know if I don't do it, I'm not going to move forward. And so it's that battle. And how do you stretch? It's always painful, because it means, like you say, you made a mistake, right? You did something wrong and you learn from that, hopefully.
Yeah. One of the speakers out there has this thing about being comfortable about being uncomfortable. I'm not sure that's possible. I think it's just knowing it's important. Knowing that it's worth doing and that you'll get to the other side. Zig Ziglar used to say, Jim Rohn, I think it was Jim Rohn, it doesn't really matter who it was, but it wasn't me, that we teach all these things and we say it to other people, and sometimes people think that we're not susceptible to it anymore. Definitely not true. We're more aware because we focus on it all the time and we talk about it all the time. And so we're able to catch ourselves. Oh, this is where I should not take the easy road and I need to do the stretch, right? Because I've seen this before, right? We're just alert to it and we're aware to when it's time to be uncomfortable and move. And that's almost every time, right? I'm starting to I was this way on my submarine. So we would come home from deployment or come home from a mission or something that was really tough, and everybody's proud and they're excited to see their family members. And those were the most dangerous times. It's written throughout history in the U.S. Navy, both submarines and surface ships. That's when we hit the buoys. It's when we hit other ships. It's when we run aground. It's when we do really stupid stuff, make bad decisions about the crew and things. And it's all because our guard is down. And letting your guard down, I think, anyway. So what I've trained myself is to become uncomfortable in those positions, become nervous. Hair on the back of my neck stands up when everybody else is partying and can't wait to see family. And doing what we would say on the submarines as a looky-loo through the periscope. You're supposed to be watching for contacts and you're talking about what somebody's wearing, like on the pier. And so, like, I was the grump. They would call me the Grinch. I would be out, especially when I was the executive officer, not the captain on the bridge, but I'm going around as the executive officer, just beating people up. Your uniform doesn't look right. Go fix that. What are you talking about? What are you looking at? Like, I was just this Grinch. Aren't you happy to be, they used to say this to me, aren't you happy to be coming home? I'm like, yeah, I'm happy if we make it home, but you guys aren't like setting us up that way. And so I think it was about not just being comfortable about being uncomfortable, but realizing it's important to grow, right?
And I think what you said is what you learn with time is how to recognize those things. It's not that you're not going to get into a bind, that you recognize what it is and you have a way out. And
Yeah.
that's a big difference than what most people do is, and that's why stress is so bad, is because we get into a place, we panic, right? We panic, we don't know what's going on, we blame God, we blame everybody but ourselves for putting us in this spot. And so we can't even see the solution. And that's one of the things I actually learned from Dan Sullivan's Gap and Gain. It's what he talks about in there in that lesson, a big part of it, it's not that you won't get in the gap. It's that now you can recognize it and find your way out.
And it might have been Dan Sullivan who just said that they were aware to it earlier. I might have had the wrong person, but I remember that. Yeah, Dan does talk about that in Gap and Gain. Very powerful. It's almost human nature to focus on the game because it's exciting and it's like the groundhog that catches the rabbit, the little fake rabbit running around the inside. What does he do now? I was just telling Tammy that one of my upcoming podcasts is going to be on Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game. And so people who focus their business, it's really all about business. Simon Sinek, about business ownership and how to make your business successful. So he's talking about like Microsoft was playing a finite game, and their game was try to beat Apple, right? And Apple was playing this. I know you don't really like Apple, but Steve Jobs was all about this provide an incredible experience in a watch or a phone or whatever, right? And he was not paying any attention to the other guy. But that's just one example. But as far as the infinite game is like never let the dog catch the rabbit because then the dog doesn't have anything to do anymore, right? And so the gap in the gain is always have that thing out in front of you, but but if you're playing the infinite game, you're always pushing the goalposts out, right? It's like running a marathon, but you just push it out. When you get to 26 and a half, you go to 30, right? And so that can be a little demoralizing unless you're looking at how much have I done, right? Don't look just at the gap, look at the game.
Yeah, when you're looking at progress, it's the horizon. Literally, it's always walking away from you, right? If you're growing, you will never reach it. And so, like you said, all of a sudden you get to a place where it's like, man, I expected to do such, and I'm still not at the horizon. You're never going to get to the horizon, and so you need to look back and say, wow, look where I was and how far I've come. Holy cow! If we stay on this course, we're not going to get to the horizon, but we're gonna make some strides in that direction. And I think that is the big key piece. And if we settle, and for me, something I learned a long time ago, which is the opposite that most people think, and that is that goals are actually a problem in some respect. They're limiting, right? If we set a goal that we reach, then what?
Yeah, you're the dog on the rabbit again. You're just standing there, you're not running anymore. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the whole finite versus infinite. Yeah.
We've got to keep growing. We've got to.
And then Todd, isn't it also that like retirement, right? That's the problem with the retirement.
We shut down.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger than that, I think, because not only have we moved into that, in the financial markets, they call it the glide path, right? Where you start shifting riskier assets into bonds and other things. You reach that glide, that's that slowdown. The whole thing about retirement is about slowing down, stopping, quitting. And of course, the word retire means to take out of service. So, pair all that together with the fact that for most people, they had no idea what inflation does to that money. So all of a sudden now they're also having to pare down because they can see that, wow, things are going up and my income is staying static versus when I was working, I had a cost of living raise to keep up. Now everything's shutting down. My income's shutting down, my cash flow's shutting down, and my mind is shutting down. And then we go sit in the lazy boy in front of the television or whatever else happens, and we just die quickly, right?
Yeah, I always talk about it like taking this Ferrari that was amazing, and for some reason you decided that the Ferrari, it's time to go to the junkyard. And 10 years later, you're like, I really could use that car now. So you call it the junkyard guy, and nobody's been doing maintenance. It's been sitting out in the weather. The tires are rotted. You got problems if you need the Ferrari back, right? Oh, yeah. So you can go work at Walmart and greet people, but it's not going to be what you gave up voluntarily when you decided to take yourself out of service, right?
And I think along that line, I think for most people, if they could take a leave of absence for maybe 6 months and say, you know what, I'm just going to take a leave of absence for a while, just try it on for size, because it is amazing how many people just, okay, I've played all the golf that I want to play now. I'm ready to do something that's meaningful. It's time to get back to work, while they thought their whole dream was to be able to do nothing but play golf all day. I saw this in my mom. She has always been in the hospital system in works in laboratory. And at 75, she finally decided that she was going to retire. And 2 weeks later, she went back to work.
Wow.
That was all she could stand.
That's good. That's good for her, though. So many people wait long enough that they're not relevant.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good point of leave of absence where you do have this point where you need to come back. You can turn it into retirement if you decide that, you know what, this is perfect for me. But at least we have this end point that gives us context. At least we have to a point where we have to consider what we're going to do. I think that's great. We have a friend who travels with us. He's been a corporate attorney his whole life, and he did the typical. I mean, he retired at 50, but he retired late 50s, I think, maybe 60. Still got a lot of fire inside, and he actually got his wife started. They started traveling. We went to Galapagos as a group and spent a lot of money, and he was like, "I think I'm going to go back to work for a little bit." So he got a little nervous, but as a contractor, he sets the time. He does a lot of it from home. Only travels when he wants, and making more money than he was back then, or at least maybe not total, but because he's not working as many hours, but per hour he's doing better. It makes him feel valued, and it's a win-win. He's loving it.
And I think that's a big part of it. I think this idea of totally quitting, I think so many people would like control of their schedule. And for a contractor, they have a little bit of control there. But for most people, they don't feel like they have that control. It's, I've got to work all these days every week. That's what I would like to get rid of. Okay, get rid of that part of it. Do some consulting. Do something, though, that keeps you alert and going, and some additional outside income. I think the income is in many ways less important than what it does mentally for somebody.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yep. It's knowing that when needed, you can provide for your family still, right? Like you do have resources if it's needed. And doing it on your own terms is the most important thing for most people. That's what they dislike. They don't dislike, my wife doesn't dislike being a nurse. She disliked being told when and what day she could go to work, and you have to do all these things, right? She famously, I asked her to keep staying full time so that she would have her ability to get her 10 loans back when that was the only real option out there, was each of us to get our own 10 loans for our rental properties. Now with the DSCR loan, property kind of stands on its own non-recourse, and they're very popular nowadays. Rates are pretty close to what they are for a 30-year fix, so it's not a big deal. But in 2018, it was a big deal. And I was like, Sue, please don't quit yet. I want to get these properties in your name. And she called me famously in traffic in New Jersey, getting to work, like already delayed a half hour in traffic. And she was like, get them done. Like, she's like, how many properties do I need? I'm like, you need 4 more. And she's like, get them done now, because I'm telling you, I don't have much left in me. But then what happened when I found a package of 4 properties and bought them all at once? She's still a nurse, but she's doing it on her terms, all on her terms. And that's what matters. She didn't hate. Most people probably don't hate what they chose as a profession, and they definitely don't hate the money, and they don't hate for her, it's a lot about the social stuff, right? She gets to go and talk to other people, and they have dinner and they go to lunch. There's a social side to it. Plus she's remaining relevant. That's important for her psyche. She just didn't like being told what she has to do. And there's been plenty of times where she was like, nope, not doing that. What do you mean? You might lose your job. Okay. So because she had set up life on her terms.
Yeah. And then how much more productive are you if you're in that state? See,
oh my gosh.
That's the big circle that people leave out. It's when we talk about in the financial industry, having access to cash, whatever it is that makes you comfortable. This idea that you could walk away from the job tomorrow if it didn't match who you were, and knowing that you can do that now frees up 90% of your brain to think about how you could create more value.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely credit you and Kim for keeping my language crisp and clear, and also asking great questions. On her podcast this morning, I was listening to, Kim said, she was talking about where do you save your cash, right? Just great question. And she has said on this topic about retirement, right? And I think it might have been you who said, one of the two of you, the word retirement means to take out of service. Like I intend, if you go to the retirement party or you go tell your boss, I intend to take myself out of service. Like if you use those words, it's important. Like what it does to your brain. Wait a minute, I don't actually want to take myself out of service. Can I take a sabbatical for a while? So like that may help you take a much better path if you use important, crisp words. I I don't know where I got this, but I don't remember who to credit, unfortunately. But this person like shook my world when they said, stop saying to your kids, I don't have time for that. Instead, just simply say, I choose not to prioritize that right now, right? Because we all have time. We all have the same amount of time. It sounds pithy. We always talk about that. But if you just change the words and say, when your kid comes in with his glove in his hand and says, hey, Dad, let's play catch. I choose not to prioritize that right now. This is far more important. You can't do it,
Yeah.
which means it's not important. Like it's the wrong step, is what I'm trying to say, right? So like using words is so important. And how do you, the listeners out there, how do you do this? You listen to Kim Butler and Todd Langford and others who are speaking your language, right? It matters what your language is, but maybe it's somebody in your industry, maybe it's a family member, but whoever it is, that is, when you're, it's where you're in a Southern Baptist church and everybody's saying, amen, it's like, you're speaking to me. This is my language. And this is what's important to me. It's bringing up this inspiration in my soul, right? You need to find who those people are and then listen to more of that because it keeps you on path, I think. Do you agree with that, Todd?
I think that's absolutely correct. And that's such a big piece outside of the numbers. And that's what's, I think, interesting. Like for me, I understand the big picture of how that stuff fits and the importance of it. It doesn't mean I follow it. I'm still human. I get in the gap. I still screw up. But I understand the focus. I understand the importance of that when I'm not in a stress mode. And I use the numbers to back that up. And that's what keeps me in line. You mentioned earlier on that you've said some things in the past and realized, wait a second, through learning certain things, like that doesn't actually work out. Even though you're hearing it from 100 different, quote, professionals in whatever industry it is. And it's not just the financial industry that's messed up and has a lot of lies. What I've discovered is it's just about every industry. And they all have the same problems. I think it's bigger in the financial industry, and that's odd because it's supposed to be based in math, and yet we see that so many of the ideas are totally contradictory. But that's why I love the math, like with Truth Concepts, is because I can say, wait a second, this sounds good. Let me see what the numbers actually say. And in that, I can figure out a lot of times, oh, that's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. Why isn't it? Then I can dig a little bit deeper and find out that, yeah, there's a logical reason it wasn't the way we were thinking. There was some side factor or something else in the mix. But at the same time, we also have to understand that the math is, if we don't live in math, right? That's just a basis of, okay, does the math work? Yes. Now, in somebody's particular situation, does it fit?
Yeah, really math and science, they're a way to provide context for us to sustain life and actually get through the experiences, right? Without math and science, we're in trouble.
But it's in a lab, right? It's under perfect conditions. It's not under real life necessarily.
Hey, Gary's Gulch, I hope you appreciated and enjoyed part one with Todd Langford on the power of truth and the numbers that back it up. And you can see we're not going over the numbers in this one. We're going over the concepts, and we're going over why it's important that you do the due diligence to make sure that your clients can have confidence in you. Not that you have to show them all this stuff. As I mentioned at the beginning, I don't show them hardly anything nowadays because I've done the work on myself that I can cut through that and give them the most important facts during their busy lives. Stay tuned for the second half where we get into other aspects about why it's so important that you know the truth and that you can communicate those basic concepts to your clients so that they can grow their agency and take action. I can't wait to have this conversation with you all again in part two. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.